Hello and welcome to the Honest Business Podcast. I hope you are very well. I'm currently recording this on a very hot summer's day. I'm so just warm and I haven't got the fan on because I'm recording. I'm struggling a bit in the heat, but I hope you are very well. I hope you're enjoying the heat and I hope your body works much better than mine in the heat because as someone with a chronic illness, it's just it's just all too much really. But yeah. If you're watching on YouTube, I apologise. If you're listening without visuals, then it won't be quite so bad, I imagine. Today, we're going to talk about something that is slowing down your ability to scale your business. And we are talking about business fundamentals. Now, this is a topic that before you switch off and don't want to listen to, I really encourage you to do so because this is something that I'm going to go into depth with it and try and kind of unravel some things. And hopefully, it will maybe build an argument for you as to why it's worth you spending time looking at your business fundamentals and why the basics are never complete. Because I think this is what I want the message for you to take away today is that, they're never done, they're never complete, and there's always something that you can be doing. So what I want to just first clarify is what are the fundamentals of business? Like, what are business fundamentals before we get going? So I'm talking about your business strategy, your brand, legal, your operations, like value proposition, finance, pricing, sales, marketing, customer experience, HR. I'm talking about the core things in a business that are needed to run a successful business, core things that sit in a business that ensure that a business can run very well and then can scale and grow and move at speed. And then the final piece of that is sustainability, which the sustainability piece is also a key element because most people want to scale sustainably. They don't want to scale like in a way that in 3 years' time it all comes crashing down. So those are the business fundamentals. That is what I'm going to talk about today, but I'm going to stick with me and let's go through this and it might help you in some way. Why the fundamentals are important and why I'm doing this episode is that they are the core of your business, and it doesn't matter how big your business gets, they're always still the core. So the core of your business is these business fundamentals, and I want to make them sexy. I want you to be like, yeah, these are cool. These are fab. Like, I love these. Like, I see the value in them. I appreciate them. Now, I get that for some of you, you might be listening thinking, I don't get this. Like, that's not me. However, I want to try and prove you otherwise. And the reason I believe that they're sexy is because this is the stuff that provides you with freedom. This is the stuff that, if you get this right, will give you so much time back, will allow for your profit to be way higher than it will be if they're not. So this isn't a like optional nice to have. This is a like, you kind of need to sit down and get this sorted, and it's never going to be complete, but you really need to commit to doing something with it, because they provide you with the freedom that you've probably set your business up for, and it is the core of your business. Now, one thing I also want the message to be is that they can be elevated and they can be advanced. So the business fundamentals that you create and that you work on when you first start your business are going to be way different to what they are 10 years in or 20 years in, or at the point in which you've made, £1 million in revenue or £100,000 in revenue or 50 million in revenue. These business fundamentals are constantly changing and evolving, and they're advancing. And so I think the reason some people don't want to engage with this is because they think, well, it's boring. I've done that. I've been there. The point of it should be that if you're doing it effectively, it won't be boring. It'll be quite exciting. I can't say obviously some things like legal and finance might not seem that exciting to you, but there should be elements of this that you find quite exciting because it's going to be elevated and it's going to be changed. The other thing I want to remind you is that the basics take a long time. So the misconception, and there's many, but one of them is that you do the business fundamentals and you get the business set up and that's it, it's done. But to get them right and to get them working really well and to get it like an oiled machine, it takes time. It's going to take a bit of graft. It's going to take some time if you actually sort of refining and working out what they are. Another piece of the pie of this that most people don't have, so you might have your business fundamentals in some degree kind of nailed, but it's not documented. And documentation is a really important piece of business fundamentals and what that means. So the documentation might not be there. The other thing that might not be there is the data side of things. So if you have your business fundamentals set up correctly, your data collection process and your reporting processes, which should be monthly, it might be weekly, it could be daily, quarterly and yearly, depending on what you're measuring and how big your business is and what you want to be measuring, then business fundamentals is a really key piece of making sure that the monthly reporting, or whenever you're doing your reporting, can be done well, can be done efficiently, and actually tells you what you need to know. So those are kind of like, if we want to just talk sort of broadly and high level, those are the things that I want to kind of leave you with. But obviously they've got the whole episode to go. So I am going to talk through in more depth about what I've just spoken about. And at the end, I'm also going to talk about how the next podcast episode is going to link to this one. So the next podcast episode is kind of a lead on from this, and it will all kind of make sense and hopefully really help you. So going back to talking about business fundamentals, something that we need to really understand and dissect is this misconception around small business owners specifically believing that business fundamentals is a one-time task and it's complete. Completion's kind of not really real with this. It's not going to happen. Like it's always going to be moving forward. And I want you to think about, what are the dangers of that? So what are the dangers of you not constantly looking at them? What potentially might happen, or what has happened in your business due to the fact that you've just sort of left certain things because you're like, oh, they're one and done. I.e., for example, legal. How many of you bought a contract template or bought something or didn't buy something and just made it yourself, like created some sort of contract template, and that hasn't changed even though the business is now generating £20,000 a month? It's highly likely that that contract needs changing. And so it's about, what is the danger there? What is the risk to the business? What's the numeration issue there? Because potentially, you could end up in some really sticky situations. And so it's about you going through and thinking about each department and each place and thinking, yeah, like, what haven't I actually really reviewed and looked at? And the review process doesn't have to take ages. It doesn't have to be this like really drawn out thing. But it's just important to think about, of like, okay, well, where does that fit in the time I'm working on my business? How much of this needs to look at the fundamentals of what you're doing? There's obviously been real examples of where this has been done so badly. So when we think about, the idea of something being complete and then just moving on to the next thing, you can see it from a health and safety perspective. If you are someone who runs sort of some kind of in-person business, or a business where actually health and safety and risk assessment's a huge thing for you and needs to be, many people do it once and think, oh, I've done it, great, I've got that on my computer if I ever need to find it. Well, that's not really going to work, is it, at the point in which there's something really serious occurs? So it might be that safeguarding in what you do is a big thing because of who you work with and what you do. And if that's the case, like, that becomes quite tricky, right? Because you've constantly got to be on top of this. And so really get clear on and allow yourself to, with the idea, and gel with the idea that completion doesn't really make sense. It's not really going to happen. The opposite, obviously, to that is complacency, where you then, maybe this is where you're at now, where you think like, oh, I'm not bothered. Like, you're not bothered. But the thing is, like, if you don't have a proactive mindset about this, you're going to really struggle. And I think actually I see this in businesses where you can just tell people are a bit like checked out on it, and they're just a bit like, well, I'm not really bothered. Like, I'll deal with it when it's a problem. The I deal with it when it's a problem mentality really sucks. Like, it doesn't really work. Obviously, sometimes in business, we can't have the pulse on every single thing, and sometimes that is just the case and it happens. However, there is a lot of things in business where you really need to try and make sure that you are proactively looking and also seeking opportunities that you can advance and improve something. So, like, where can you improve an area of the business, not because you have to, but because you want to, and actually it provides a competitive advantage, or it makes things easier, or it takes less time for, people around you to carry out what it is that you want them to do. So I think trying to switch from this idea that everything's a hassle and everything's frustrating to, what can I do here? Like, where is the growth opportunity? Where is the opportunity for refinement? Where can I make things a lot better? That will really help. I also think you need to be careful of this within a team. So you really set the precedent on. I'm sorry if you can hear a dog barking in the background. It's so frustrating. It's not my dog. I don't have a dog, but everyone around me does have a dog. So there's a lot of dogs barking often. What was I saying? I've completely lost my train of thought. Teams, yes. So when we think about teams with this stuff, often business owners get very resentful and very frustrated because they want the business fundamentals to be taken care of by someone else. But what doesn't seem to happen is they don't want to engage in it either. So the team member who's responsible, or the team that's responsible, has zero kind of interest or motivation or any kind of leverage to decide that why would they want to delve into that project, because the person that's leading the business and the leader is not really fostering a culture of like, yes, let's do this, let's make sure this happens, like, I'm really interested, I really want to see what you guys come up with. So I think you've got to be really careful that you don't just mentally check out and delegate it. Like, yes, you can delegate this, and I'd encourage you to delegate some of it. You really can delegate. You don't want to be sat writing a contract, like get a lawyer to do it. But you need to really look at how are you approaching it and what is your perspective of how you show up, because that's like really key for making sure that the whole thing makes sense. The next issue I see when it comes to business foundations and really the lack of kind of priority in that area is people seem to forget that continuous improvement is key to actually making this all work. So if you want to build a business that you're really proud of, that people love, that provides a really good service, that is really kind of value driven and makes impact in the world, it's likely you're going to constantly have to be improving what makes sense for your business. You know, that's constant refinement of processes, of systems, of what you offer, of how you market, how you sell. That is a real activity in driving growth and driving innovation and driving this idea that like it's constantly going to keep getting better and better and better. But if your business foundations don't continue to do that with you, you will end up with a real separation in the business, and you will end up where the business grows, but nothing underneath it can support you, and everything just feels like it's like a flop, and everything just feels like it's like, oh my goodness, like, and that's where people scale and then they panic and they burn out, and there's all sorts of kind of chaos unfolds because it's really challenging, because they just feel like I've just sort of like blindsided something that I could have easily worked on. So hopefully this conversation is kind of encouraging you to think about, what can I do to help me think about how can I make sure I value continuous improvement? How can I make sure that as a business, we are always trying to move forward and be ahead of the game? And it doesn't need to just be ahead of the game in terms of the next fun or cool thing. It's being ahead of the game across business functions, because that's really important, really, really key. The other thing for you to think about is just managing expectation around innovation, and managing this expectation of, yes, you constantly want to be innovating, yes, you constantly want to be providing the best thing, but if that comes at a cost of just the basic operations, it's not going to work. So you've either got to hire support to help you, or you've got to work out a time frame and a space and a skill set that means that you can do it. And so really understanding like, how do you focus on the essentials, but then how do you also go ahead with innovation is key. Ideally, I would suggest that if you can, you need to have someone who can help operate the business, who can help do a lot of the like doing, and you're more of the like visionary, the one with the ideas, the one who's understanding what the next steps are, but you're not necessarily doing it. And we've talked about that in episode recently, client management episode, part 2. At the end of the episode, I talked about operations help and having people to help you in the business. And I think one of the best hires you can make is an operator in your business, someone who can do things that you get an idea, you get a task, but then you have someone who can execute, and someone who can actually like move things forward. And that might be you, but it's likely going to be someone else, because it's kind of really important. And I think if you can get that balance, if you can strike that balance well, you will do a lot of what I've been talking about without you even thinking about it. Like you'll just be like, oh yeah, we do that. We already review this. We always do market research every X amount of time. Like there will be certain things that come up that you're just like, yeah, we have that nailed down. And that's really exciting that you can kind of do that, really, because it's like how fun that you get to be in the driver's seat of that and also understand where the business is going forward, but have the peace of mind that everything's still working for you in the background. I think if you're going to listen to this episode and you're going to go away and you're going to really utilize it and think about how can I make the most of it, I think what you really need to think about are what are your priorities in business? And what are your sort of like, what are you committing to? What are you really happy to say, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to fly the flag and be an advocate for valuing the fundamentals in a business. Like me, for example, pretty much all of the work I do, that's not true, but like a lot of the work I do, the majority of the work I do with clients is around the fundamentals, constantly changing, constantly tweaking, constantly refining. Like that is a massive part of what I do. And I build a whole business around it because that's how important it is. And that's how much I work with people to really get things nailed and to help them constantly look at how can they be improving on. And that's so key, so useful for people. And I think what the next part of that is it's a leadership decision. It's a leadership for you decision for you to say, as a leader of this business, we are as a business going to value getting the small things right. We're going to value not just the big shiny stuff. We're going to value the stuff on the ground that makes the business work. It makes it tick over. It allows it to make money. And you're going to say that that is a priority and it's a non-negotiable. And you're also going to say that I need to have a level of accountability around that, because it might be that for most people it's that, you know, we're not actively not doing something. It's just that we forget, right? We just forget that we've got all this stuff going on. It's not the first thing that's on our mind when we wake up in the morning. And so having a system, having processes in place, having SOPs in place, but also having a kind of conscious mental attitude and a value within your business and your leadership that says, we are going to do this because it matters to us, is really important. The other exciting thing is that clients can actually see that, and the stakeholders that interact with your business can feel it. They can see it. They can feel quite sort of connected to it. It's quite exciting. You can tend to normally find when a business feels quite solid and feels quite slick and feels like they kind of know what they're kind of doing. It's quite sort of relieving for people who are sort of on the other side of that. So those are my thoughts around the topic today of the thing that's stopping you from slowing down your ability to scale, and business fundamentals. And I hope you've like took this as like an objective, just like a conversation to think about. It's not really about you going away and having like this massive plan that you've got to go and do. I just want you to reflect on it and reflect on what have you taken from that? Like, what is it popped in your head? Is there something specific that you're like, no, actually, I really need to go and action that? Has it been a reminder for you? Is it that actually this is what you do in your business helping people with? It might be that you've realized like, yeah, this is kind of what I do with people all the time. Maybe you're a VA, maybe you're, an operations agency, maybe you're some kind of consultant, maybe you're a lawyer. Maybe it's kind of helped you get clearer on what it is that actually you do and where the value lies in what you provide. And if that's the case, then great, I'm over the moon. That's fab. What is going to lead on from this is I'm then going to talk in the next episode about the art of execution, because all of this is kind of really culminating in the fact that in order for this all to work and make sense, things have to be executed upon. And execution in business, in terms of actually getting shit done, is one of the most kind of like unspoken about things, because people don't actually talk about how much execution has to go on in a business to achieve a certain goal, and how much volume of energy often it takes to push something, to get something going, to change something, to kind of see this massive success that people want to see. And so next episode, I'm going to really talk about, what does execution mean and look like, and can you do that? Like, it's going to be a bit more of a practical thing of like, what do you actually do? Because I think that's important. So hopefully you'll join me for that. And I will speak to you soon. I hope you're enjoying the heat if it's warm where you are. I hope you are having an ice lolly or an ice cream. Maybe if you're listening at a different time of year, or even in a different part of the world and it is cold where you are, that you're enjoying being cozy. But I'm sending lots of love to you. Thank you for listening. And I'd love to hear what insights you have over on Instagram. Tag me in your stories or write a post and tag me in it. I'll be intrigued to hear about what it's kind of sparked for you. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.